Hi, everybody. Oh, wow. We're super glad to be here. Thank you so much to the Dash team for inviting us and entrusting us to be the very first speakers. So I'm Lindsey Laseter.
I'm Alan.
And we are Lasso. We're a creative studio. As Mac shared, we're based in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's run by us, a husband and wife team.
So this is us back when we were little babies at a art school in Nashville called Watkins College of Art and Design, and I studied film while we were there, and I was actually more focused on directing and cinematography and that kind of thing. And when I graduated, I kind of freelanced in that world for a while and then transitioned slowly, almost accidentally, into motion design. And while Lindsey was there, she studied graphic design, and she's worked at great big agencies in Nashville and also some really small, amazing brand shops where she's really honed in on her craft. And this is our family. This is all of us. We have 2 kids and a dog. That's Noah on the left there. He's 2.5. Maddie is 6 in the middle, and Margot is 12 on the right. And we don't speak very often, to be honest, and our daughter gave us some great advice. She drew this little note for us. She's done like school plays and stuff, so you know, she's
way more experienced than us. So we wanted to share it with you guys. So step 1, breathe. Step 2, say, I can do this, but in your head. That's in parentheses. Then do it. And so we're super grateful to Maddie. Yeah! I can't wait to tell her. So yeah, super grateful for our kiddos. Thanks to space needs shifting, we work from what we lovingly call the cloffice, and it's because it's a closet that is also now our office, and one benefit, it has a window. So it was honestly too messy to take a picture of, so we didn't do it. Is it just you guys? We get this question a lot, and yes, it's just the 2 of us. We don't have any full-time employees, but Lasso would absolutely not be possible without a long list of people, and even just specific to the motion industry, it includes people that we have been fortunate enough to bring on to our teams, people who have hired us, whether it be studios or clients, and honestly, Mac was pointing this out earlier, people who were just so willing to give their time and their encouragement and their guidance as we were figuring things out and not knowing what we were doing.
Yeah, so what do? We're basically a creative studio, but we really have a focus on kind of both of our skill sets, which is motion over here, branding over there, and we try to come together. Like our ideal project is where it's really a more branding focused project where motion can be integrated into the branding from the very beginning. So it's like essential to it, and both parts are kind of integrated into each other instead of kind of like tacking one thing on at the end. But really we do all kinds of work that comes our way, really. And we just love to do work that's a blend of the things we love, illustration, fun, striking colors, cool typography. We like to animate characters. We like to take surreal illustrations and try to bring them to life in a fun way.
And really, our biggest goal is to bring a fresh perspective to the work that we're doing. And we've been really fortunate to have a wide variety of clients, whether they've been like small local clients that have been really fun and creative. We work with nonprofits often. And we have plenty of food on the table projects that would not ever come into our portfolio, but we're grateful for nonetheless. It's really fun. We get to work with experiential clients. There have been some dream clients that came along. And what we really, really love is to work with other artists and focus on things that are in culture and in humanities. And at the end of the day, what we're really looking to do is just have fun with our work when we can.
And so when we first started, we tried to build our studio around what really matters to us. And so we decided to write out a list of our values, which is a pretty common thing for small businesses, studios to do. And we kind of split them into why and how. So we'll go through some of the why values really quickly. Why do we do what we do? First of all, for just the joy of creation. We love to make stuff. We want to be able to steward the gifts that we feel we've been given in this capacity. Always remembering that our quality of life is of utmost importance, like our lives outside of the work we do. And we want to be able to support others, whether it's other creatives that we can work with or clients who have a creative idea that we can help them put out into the world. And then, of course, just building some freedom and flexibility and security through the work that we do.
The how, that asterisk is important, so remember. How do we actually do it? When we're at our best, it's when we're leaning into play and we're getting into that flow state. And, I gotta remember to click. And also trusting our gut and remembering that our instincts are incredibly powerful. It's really important to us that we prioritize our family, and we do that by having really tight boundaries. We have clarity of our needs, and especially from a financial perspective, we've learned that big budget projects are not actually worth it if we can't enjoy our day-to-day life. And most importantly, to let go of control.
And just to be clear, we're constantly finding ourselves not living by these values. And when we first started, we felt really good about ourselves because we were just, in a little room and we're fantasizing about these future versions of ourselves. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, and just really having these really lofty ideas and imagining who we could be. But we quickly realized that it didn't take long at all to realize that when you're in the real world versus out of the kind of abstract planning phase, it gets really difficult to actually stick to the values that you create. And even you actually end up even realizing whether or not you believe them or if they just sounded good. And part of the reason for that is because life and the world cannot be controlled. And that's unfortunate because we are control freaks. And I like to think that we're recovering control freaks. We're trying to get better, we're learning, but we're also relapsing back into that all the time.
So to tell you guys a little story about how this came to light for us, we have these weekly meetings, we call them CEO meetings, where often we're talking about the things that are happening in the studio, project management, even just big picture dreams. But as you can imagine, being a husband and wife team, things get way more personal, and maybe there's more tears in these meetings than would be in a traditional business. And on this particular day, we were meeting at Wendell's. This is just this great little local spot in Nashville that we would go get breakfast at. And I had something that was weighing on me really heavily. And to be honest, I was terrified to bring it up to Alan because I knew it was gonna open up this can of worms, both for our personal lives and for our professional lives. And I finally worked up the courage when we're sitting in the parking lot, literally looking at this view. And it's highly emotional, and we're literally just sitting in this space of uncertainty and desperate, honestly, for knowing exactly how we could move forward, desperate for control to know how things were gonna turn out. And we literally, we just couldn't have that. So we're sitting in that, and we turned on the car, and this song came on the radio, and maybe you've heard it, maybe not.
We just thought it was funny. It's just this kind of corny 70s pop song that I grew up hearing, usually on classic rock radio or in those random commercials for compilations in the middle of the night. And I never really gave it much of a thought. But here we were sitting in our car, and we felt like there was this deeper wisdom somehow speaking to us through this corny, classic song. And it just really kind of stuck out to us. And so we come back to it all the time. And so that's actually kind of the theme of the bulk of what we want to talk about today, is this idea of trying to hold on loosely without letting go. That's the balance that we've been trying to find from the beginning. And being able to let go of control, because we tend to have a death grip on the things that we want to do. But you can't have that, but also you got to do something. You can't just completely let go. So finding that balance is the thing that we're trying to do. And also just the difficulty of sticking to our values in a world that cannot be controlled, as we said. And so we're going to tell you the story of Lasso through a series of challenges that were all unexpected and all uncontrollable, but they're also deeply formative.
So part one, should we start a studio together? In 2013, Alan actually suggested that we work together, and my reaction then was, no, I don't think that would be good for our relationship, but we are comically indecisive, and as you can imagine, as a couple and as business partners, this can be fun. So taking you back in time to 2017, life was changing a lot for us, and we both had been in our careers for a long time. We were so passionate about it. We were staying up late working on passion projects, but you can only do that for so long. And as we were looking towards the future and wondering what do we want, we started thinking about things differently, and we decided we wanted to start a family. So with this, my job was definitely one that I was like, I need to make a change. And so I ended up taking what I like to think of as a bridge job. It wasn't a dream job, but it was going to give us way more time and flexibility. I took an in-house position as a creative director. And again, it was a really good setup. I was super grateful for it. And so I started that, and we had our daughter, Maddie. And if you're a parent, you know, it's like, man, it rocks your world and changes everything. And so I went back to that job after the maternity leave. And it was really clear that at that point, this was not a good fit. And it wasn't going to be a long-term job. And the reality was, though, that we were like, we have a baby, and I have no idea what other job I would go do. And honestly, really wrestling with it. Like, well, she could quit. That doesn't feel like a good idea. I don't know. And I was journaling on a lunch break one day, and I was asking this question. Is it possible? Is it possible to do work that we really love? Is it possible to work with people that we really believe in? And is it possible to have health insurance? Because if you have a little baby, that starts to really feel important. And I just got this intuitive answer. It was yes, it is possible. And then the next thought I had was actually really weird, because it was, maybe I'll get fired. And then a week later, I got fired. And there was a lot of weird relief. But if you've been fired, and I know some people shared that's just happened for them, you know that there are a lot of really hard emotions that come up, no matter how much you might have disliked the job that you were in. And it brings a lot of shame and uncertainty and vulnerability and fear. And so essentially, I never would have chosen to go freelance. Alan had always had the, unstable job, like that idea that freelance was the unstable one, but my quote unquote stable one was the one that was taken away the fastest.
Yeah, and so one of our biggest fears kind of moving into this phase was, like Lindsey said, like her concerns of us working together. We were just worried what it was going to be like actually being in the same room all day, seeing each other all day and after the work day. And Lindsey was like so afraid of this that she worked in like our little dining room, like before she moved into the office space where I was working. But eventually we worked through that, and she moved a little folding table in there, and we worked side by side for a while. And we were surprised. It ended up going really smoothly. And I kind of naively thought, oh, I guess we just don't fight. Like I hear about most couples fight, but we're just built different, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and so a few months into that, a project inquiry came in, and it was from Nashville Design Week. And initially, it was just for me as a freelancer, but as we were talking about it, we're like, wow, that could be really fun to do together. And so, looking back on this, I think it was really beautiful that we were both just super interested in the project and excited by it. It was super low pressure, but it essentially could plant the seed for what could actually become a real studio.
So we'll move into part 2 here. And so this first project was kind of the first occasion where we started to realize, oh, like the fact that we don't fight is actually a shortcoming. Like it's not really a good thing. And we'd always been proud that we never fought. I mean, we'd noticed it in our relationship, and when we got married, we just never really had big fights. And I think I had an inkling that this was the case and somewhere in the back of my head, but we came to find out that really it's just that we're super conflict avoidant people. And that's kind of a problem because we're also very different people. We have very different ideas about a lot of different things. And so there's plenty of occasions to fight and have arguments and be direct with each other. But we were just, especially in this work context, we were both so used to working as freelancers, and I did a lot of projects myself, and Lindsey was like a creative director in her job. And we just rarely had to like come together and, get through creative disagreements especially. So this project, even though it was really cool that it came up, it provided a big challenge in that regard.
But before that, things were going really well. And essentially, since we had not worked together, was like, all right, you do your part and I'll do my part, and then we're just gonna smush them together. And Alan, doing what he does so well, is creating these like beautiful compositions and animating them and bringing them to life. The concept that year was reshaping design, which thank God when COVID hit, it was like, the concept still makes sense, we're gonna keep it. Start to make it a system, start to bring in beautiful typography, start to give it a bunch of different applications. And it was beautiful because we were clearly making something together that we could not have made alone. And I think we were really excited by that. And seeing it like start to come to life in all these different applications. Those business cards don't exist, guys. Nobody would touch anything in 2020. But then one night.
Yeah, so there's one night when we were, as a part of this big kind of expansive system that we were building, there was a short video that we had to make. And it kind of came up last minute, it had to be done really quickly, but we still wanted it to look really fresh and interesting. So there's some pressure there, but there was a specific part of the script where there was a line that called for a very specific image. And we both just had totally different ideas of what kind of image to go with. And like Lindsey's idea was more like kind of ironic, kind of purposefully cheesy, like stock photo kind of thing. And I wanted to go like the highbrow, hoity-toity, classical, Renaissance painting. So just two totally opposite ends of the spectrum. And we were up till 2 a.m. Trying to like figure out which direction we go. Like our daughter Maddie was asleep in the room, and like we didn't really fight about it. It was more like this slow drip, passive aggressive, like little comments leaking out, and like we just couldn't like have it out and be direct and like say, I think this works because of this reason, and just hear what the other person says. That was just kind of a foreign concept to us. And so I don't remember exactly how, but we did get through it. And you know, looking back at it, we realized like the creative decision was really not that important. It's a pretty small detail of the video. But I think it was like we were really confronted with our own egos, and like all of a sudden being up against another person who is like challenging that control that we're used to having in our work. And so trying to figure out how to give up that control to your partner. And then ultimately we just realized that we didn't fight because we didn't know how to fight.
So learning how to fight was something I had avoided my entire life. And the good news is that this project broke the ice on conflict for us. And we realized that we weren't learning how to fight. We were learning how to be honest with each other and ourselves, and not just saying like, oh yeah, sure. We were learning how to listen to each other, and not the kind where you're just waiting for the person to finish so you can finally say your part and why you're right. And learning how to trust that maybe someone else would have a better idea than you, and really ultimately how to collaborate as partners who were seeking the same outcome. And so here's a clip. We're really proud of the project as a whole, and I'm really glad that we went with Alan's idea. His was the right one. But what we really learned from that, and from the many conflicts that we've dealt with since then, is that we could withstand conflict. And that actually working through it, no matter how painful or passive aggressive, that we really were better off.
So move into part 3 here. And this one was about a really unexpected challenge, one of the craziest things that's ever happened in my life by far. And it's something that really came along out of nowhere and just lit a fire under us. And this was in part due to health problems, me not taking care of my body, overworking, and at the root of that, just kind of not actually caring about some of those values that we claimed to care about, which was, our quality of life outside of work. And so one morning, I was working on a project, and Lindsey and I, we had started working together, like on this National Design Week thing, and we were kind of dipping our toe into like the studio idea kind of thing, but not really going full force on it. We were still kind of holding back. So we were kind of doing our own separate freelance projects. And I was on this project that was just super stressful. It was just kind of falling apart in different areas, and it was taking so much longer than I thought it should have taken. And I was on a work call for that project this morning, and I got off the call. It was discouraging. I was already like not sleeping enough, and I was just extra stressful and worked up. And so I sat down on my computer after the call, and I started typing a message to someone on my laptop. And as I was typing the words on the screen, I realized I could not read what I was typing. I could not read the words that were coming out. And I was a little confused, but I was aware enough to know that this is odd and something's going on. And so I kind of panicked, and I think I bolted up from my desk even. And I thought like I need to like snap out of it or something. I need to change of scenery. Lindsey noticed, thankfully, I think she might have even been on her own call, but she noticed that something was up. She came out and tried to talk to me. Asked me what was wrong, and I was trying to talk to her, and it's like I had these words in my head that I wanted to say, and I was having to like physically like will them out of my mouth, and I couldn't do it. And it was just like sounds were coming out, and I couldn't say the words that I wanted to say. And so it was then where she realized that she thought I might be having a stroke. And so she called an ambulance really quickly, thankfully. This was minutes after I noticed my symptoms. And weirdly enough, while the ambulance was on the way to our house, my symptoms subsided, and I was able to actually talk for a second. The ambulance showed up. Some medics came out and talked to us, and by that point, since it seemed like the symptoms were kind of going away, they were saying, well, maybe it's anxiety, like do you suffer with panic attacks or anything like that? And I said, I mean, I don't know, it could be. And one of the guys from the paramedics was taking my vitals, and like before we finished that little piece of the conversation, his face like got really serious all of a sudden. He was like, okay, we need to go to the hospital. So they loaded me up in the ambulance, and on the way to the hospital, I think things like got hazier and hazier and foggier, and I basically, for whatever reason, my symptoms had subsided for a minute, but now they started to kind of like nosedive. And so by the time I got to the hospital, I think I was pretty much out. I came to in a little treatment room at the ER, and I felt like I kind of knew what was going on. There were people rushing in and out of the room. Lindsey was sitting next to me, but like people were talking to me, and I thought I understood what they were saying. And I think I was responding to them, and I thought what I was saying made perfect sense. It wasn't until later that I realized that I was not at all understanding what people were saying to me, and I was just speaking total gibberish. And so it was just this weird, really scary scenario where I was just kind of like in my head, almost in a separate reality from everywhere else. Like I was kind of like locked in my brain due to these symptoms. Yeah.
So in less than 24 hours, as you can imagine, we were experiencing a dramatic amount of fear and emotional whiplash. And so for me, as I was watching Alan's face, literally I'm driving behind the ambulance and I can see his head in the window. And I'm just wondering, like, is Alan going to be alive when I get to the hospital? This is this insane unknown. And how do I tell his parents? How do I call his mom and say what's happening? And what about our daughter? She's like a year old at this point. Once we're in the treatment room and Alan is alive, but clearly not himself, will he recover? Is he ever going to be able to talk or like understand us again? And will our insurance cover this? They're coming in and asking me to sign all these papers that say that I'm going to pay whatever they charge us, and that's scary as hell. And what do I tell our clients? Alan had a deliverable that was due that day. And ultimately, what if he can't work anymore? And literally the medication that they gave Alan that saved his life that day, they shared that it had a risk of brain bleed, so that they needed to monitor him through the night. And I literally left wondering if he was going to make it through the night that night. So yeah,
the crazy thing about this is that my physical recovery was very easy. This is not the way it goes for most people, but I think I was speaking within 24 hours. There's all kinds of tests that I had to do, very uncomfortable tests, all kinds of MRI sessions and doctor visits and stuff. But outside of that, I was kind of just, I was taking it easy with work, but most of my recovery was emotional. I had just been hit, I had just been rocked to my core by this thing happening out of nowhere. I was pretty much only thinking about work, and this just came so unexpectedly. And so I was just trying to wrap my head around what had happened, and just how this huge thing, could have been much more severe, just came out of nowhere, and it just kind of like vanished and just kind of went away and kind of left me confused. And so it also led to me just wanting to like take a closer look at my life. But also I wanted answers. I wanted to know like why did this come on so suddenly, and why did it go away? Like why did it leave like that? But I realized that life is not like an episode of House, where you have like this charismatic doctor who's like a detective who gets to the bottom of every like symptom you have. After all the stuff that we did, the doctors, it's just kind of like a shrug. It's like the body is mysterious. We don't know as much about it as we think we do. And that was very unsatisfying. But I basically just had to be grateful that I was okay. And, that's my control trying to come out again. I want to like be able to wrap my hands around it. But this was the first like true sense in a deep, like visceral way of the fragility of life, but also of the gift of life. And I think our big takeaway was just a clarity of what mattered and what we really wanted to do. And so, I think this is one of the things that made us think, well, let's just do this thing if we're going to do it. Let's actually start working together. And also, not only that, but deeper than that, let's actually try and build it around our lives as a family, people we love, and just life outside of work.
So a really beautiful thing that emerged from this too is that when you're in your truly darkest moments and experiencing the deepest fears of your life is when love and support comes and it shines a light. And people just step in even without asking. And so a surreal moment in this, sitting next to Alan, I think in the ICU at this point, we were sent a link on accident that showed our family photo on a GoFundMe. And unbeknownst to us, a friend, knowing the financial fears that we had been suddenly faced with, started it just so lovingly and casually. And something that blew us away was that our creative community from design and motion and animation gave so much. So if you happen to be a person who gave to us in that time, we really, really appreciate it. And it's really interesting how life and work intersect, because in terms of the timing that this was happening, that was still in 2020. And if we think about where we all were in that time, we were truly in this very liminal space of being unsure how to move forward with COVID. We had our own personal experience of being like, what the hell? And so we ended up taking that into the next year. Nashville Design Week asked us to come again, and they start fresh every year. And so this was really a great opportunity, I think, to kind of work through that from a creative perspective as well.
And so this time, kind of getting to approach the same project from in a different year, it's not COVID anymore. And we had a lot more experience. We were working way tighter as a team, which was cool. And we were making tighter creative choices and going deeper on the conceptual side of things. We were getting really confident with our type choices and color, getting a really pared down palette as opposed to just colors all over the spectrum from the year before, which was a cool change. And just working with intentional conceptual illustrations and trying to animate them in an interesting way as well. And even the countdown was, we tried to push that as far as we could. So we were just really having fun with it. And also we got to we got to just witness the work in person. Not in our, last year we were trying to kind of force a conference through computer screens, which they did a really good job of. But this year actually seeing it in the world and seeing the community interact with the work, it felt like this was one of the things that really kind of, it felt like, okay, we're actually moving now. We're seeing stuff in the real world.
Yeah, so at this point, we finally started saying, instead of we're starting a studio, we run a studio. And finally, just getting more projects under our belt as Lasso and as a team. And we were really working on committing to the boundaries that we knew we needed to set for ourselves and practicing what we said actually mattered to us. It's extremely hard to break the habit of working too much, but we really were doing our best. And so part 4, what happens when you actually want to make a major change in your life? When you want to make a bigger jump on purpose? And so we started, again, thinking about, man, what do we really want? And could our studio support our life desires, especially desires that would all really affect the studio? And we decided we wanted to grow our family and have a second kid. And we were asking questions like, could this business that we built actually support us? And could it survive if one of us wasn't working for a prolonged period of time? And we're back to this question, is it possible? And we spent time just dreaming, what would we really desire for this? And thinking about spending time together as a family and just being in that magical human experience. And we planned our ideal, family leave, a longer maternity leave for me, a paternity leave for Alan, and that included shutting down the studio for 2 weeks. And then things got really, really slow. And on top of that, I got really, really sick. So sick that often from morning sickness, I could not work. And so we started experiencing doubt that was growing as we were getting closer to the end of the year and the due date in November. And then a project inquiry. It was actually from Apple, and more specifically from Apple Music. And this was the first brand to come to us. And I literally looked at the email to make sure it wasn't a scam because I was so shocked when the first email came in. And they came to us because of the work that we had done on Nashville Design Week 2020. It was on their mood board, and it was just this beautiful, serendipitous moment of just wow, it followed us, it brought us this next thing. And so despite running the studio for a few years at this point, we really did still struggle to feel legitimate. And in negotiations, we were tested on those values that we had said were so important to us and the dream part that we had planned for ourselves. And so you can imagine you want to be really confident talking to a brand that you really want to work with. But we needed to tell them that we were a studio, yes, but we were just husband and wife, and I was pregnant. And we needed to shut down the studio for 2 weeks of the production schedule, but we can't actually tell you when because babies could come at any time, And so honestly, we were experiencing a lot of fear because we thought maybe we're gonna lose the project. Maybe this thing that seems like it's actually going to support us in what we thought we had, it could just be taken away. But we stayed true and just told them the truth. We were totally honest about where we were, and they were so supportive. Alan and I got to work on that project together up until the final concept presentation that we needed to be working as a team. And we sent it off that night, and my water broke. And our son came into the world, Noah was born. And it just felt like this really beautiful reminder that you can trust your desires and things can work out, but not without challenges and immense discomfort and fear along the way. And that we didn't really have to have it all figured out from the beginning, but staying true to what really mattered to us really paid off.
And so the project was based on Bollywood cinema, which was really cool because this was something that I was aware of, but I'd not really dug into. So this really was a great opportunity to really dig into some older Bollywood movies and some newer stuff as well, and kind of figure out what kind of makes Bollywood Bollywood. Because basically, our task was to create these worlds, immersive environments, where you're kind of going through these doorways, and each room is supposed to kind of loosely tie in different elements of different aspects of Bollywood cinema in these really abstract ways. And so we got to work on this project that was really creative and fun, and we got a lot of creative control on it, so that was good. But also we got to see our work on a huge platform, and even though we couldn't show it on our website. It was cool just to see it on this big platform and with all these people in the Bollywood scene, interacting with the graphics and stuff, integrated in with what we had created. And so I think this was really the moment where we felt legitimate as a studio, being able to do a project like this. Since then, we've had a few years of practice. We're learning new stuff all the time, but we're still just kind of stumbling through it. There's new challenges all the time. One of those things is AI. I'm confident we're not going to be the only people to talk about that today or next 2 days. Getting older, that's always a thing, and it never stops happening from what I've learned so far. Economic uncertainty, stuff is weird all the time and just getting weirder. The value of our work is changing. Inquiries get really slow sometimes. And also updating our portfolio seems to be literally impossible to do. But despite all this, we remain extremely hopeful. We're trying to just slowly learn and be patient with ourselves as we learn how to be honest with each other, how to trust one another. And I think bigger than that is just trying to receive what comes to us, not try to control it so much. And actually, I think at the end of the day, hopefully be able to receive it as a gift and, just hold on loosely, but don't let go.
Yeah, so we want to share just a couple more projects with you guys because we've just been, again, it's almost kind of surprising sometimes where you're just wow, people are still paying us to make work. And we can actually support our family doing this. So this is a restaurant called Bad Idea that's based in Nashville. And this was an incredible project because of how many other incredible creatives we got to collaborate with. Not only animators and illustrators, but also interior designers or chefs. and just being able to experience creativity in even broader ways than our own work. We work with nonprofits and we prioritize that. Every year we work with at least one and offer discounted rates. So one we worked with in the last couple of years is called Harvest Hands in Humphrey Street, and it's an after-school program for students that also is a social enterprise and teaches them leadership and entrepreneurship skills. They create products like their own roasted coffee and soap products that they teach them how to sell and run shops. So that's an incredible one to work on. We got to work with one of my best friends recently for branding her experiential studio. She works often in the fashion world and in interiors and more experiential events. So it's just so fun how we can dip our toe into what our friends and clients are doing.
Yeah, we got to help a friend who is a filmmaker. We got to help with the art direction for that. So we made some animated titles and little subtitles and that kind of thing. And it was a really great film, and as a double win, it was for the Nashville Philharmonic Orchestra, so it was something for our town, which we like to try and do. We got to work with great friends at Ordinary Folk, art directing, and kind of from a bigger kind of creative perspective, creating art for this beautiful short film that they kind of animated and headed up on that end about the creation narrative. And we got to work with another friend, some more friends of ours, a Nashville-based studio called IV, helping them create a card game, or helping create art for a card game that they had created. So this was cool, getting to work in a totally different headspace, thinking about how a physical game like this would be, how our art would impact that basically. We got to create some cool typography for it, which was kind of a stretch, some custom numbers. And also, it was just conceptually, this was so cool because it was this kind of like sci-fi-ish, retro sci-fi idea of we're basically trying to create a timeline of history from beginning or pre-time to the end of time for an alternate reality world that's kind of similar to ours, but different in these kind of funky ways. So yeah, it's just to kind of reiterate, we somehow these fun, weird projects keep coming our way, and we're just kind of trying to take them.
So yeah, this is our story of all the things that we absolutely would not have chosen for ourselves, but led us to ultimately what we needed most. And great news, because we continue to make work that we care about with people we believe in, and we have health insurance. Thank you.